really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to Rosbifs Rugby, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14, Pro de Nationale, the European Cups, and the brilliant bars, food, fans, cities, towns, and everything else in between. I am Richard, and as ever, I'm joined by my Soya Angoulême clad Rosbif colleague, Rob. We're recording this slightly earlier in the day than usual, so we're both looking slightly fresher and less haggard after a day of work. Rob, what have you been up to?
I have had a very frustrating morning, Richard, we're trying to upgrade our sound audio stuff, but also trying and failing to get tickets to the Stade Émile Giral this weekend, where USAP Perpignan are playing at home to Clermont. I was in the queue 20 minutes before the reopening of the ticket office, and at 11:30. So they opened at 11:30 UK time. At 11:36, I was in. There was briefly one ticket, and by the time I clicked on the section to pick my seat, that had gone. So within 6 minutes, having queued 20 minutes ahead of time, they'd all gone, which is frustrating, but. So I am open for tickets if anyone's got one. It's Saturday could be an early start travelling from Béziers to get there for the ticket office opening on the day. It could be doing that, seeing the players arrive at Stade Émile Giral and then on to Narbonne to watch them against Carcassonne, or I can stay in Perpignan and watch Catalans Dragons versus Leeds Rhinos. In Rugby Super League, which is very tight at the moment, or nearly as tight as Pro de. But it's been a frustrating morning. But I'm very excited about what we've got on the agenda for today.
Very good, yeah. So we've got coming up. We'll jump into that in just a moment. But we're really thrilled to be joined by Agen Zak Farrance, it's Zak Farrance, isn't it? But yeah, we're joined by Zak later to get the lowdown on all things Pro de, how a lad from the Hauts counties ends up in France, and we're really looking forward to it. Rob, you touched there. You're going solo this weekend, a nice little excursion to France. We obviously last week went pretty heavy on the recommendations for a trip to Toulouse off the back of Harlequins semi-final, which we'll speak about in a little bit more detail in just a sec. But our advice did not fall fully on deaf ears for perhaps the first time ever. Big shout out to listener, I was about to say long time listener, but it's not that long really. Ben Slade, Twins fan Ben Slade, who I believe is related to both Henry Slade and former Section Power and All Black fly half Colin Slade, yeah. I'm fairly sure that's the case. Who heeded our advice and actually managed to get to Toulouse without having to remortgage, and also brilliantly got to Carcassonne for their Nationale playoff game against Chambéry, which they won, which sets up a very enticing, as you just mentioned, fixture away at Narbonne. And
I think they've already sold 8,000 tickets. I don't know if I'm going to get a ticket. I think they've already sold 8,000, or it's like target 8,000 or something like that for that
Pretty
game. Local derby in a semi-final for automatic promotion is pretty tasty.
Yeah, it's very cool. A couple of call outs and we're sort of messaging Ben a bit. He sent us some footage. The ground at Carcassonne looks really, really cool. Bit of athletics track, which sometimes doesn't lend itself to the best sort of views, but it looked awesome, and it looks really close to to the kind of city and the ramparts in the distance. And another shout out, which we flagged that Martin Landajo was playing, former Harlequins player, Argentina player, was playing for Carcassonne. Did not bother to check the Chambéry squad and team sheet, who had one Nicky Gonover playing for them.
Who Ben also reminded us did play for Quins, which is quite forgotten. Shows how many wingers they got through in over the years. But yeah, what a player to go and watch. Last time we saw or heard of him was actually a game that we were at, probably our first ever Pro D2 game, Bayonne versus Mont de Marsan. Trawling through the team sheets as a trip down memory lane recently. I was like, do you remember Nicky Gonover playing in that game for Mont de Marsan? Because I didn't. No. But I feel like I wouldn't have let that one slide, but never mind. So good to see that he's kind of stayed in France, enjoying France.
Yeah, good. Awesome player, wicked player to watch.
How old is he now?
I think he's 40. I'm pretty sure I looked, he's 40. But yeah, what a player. But that was obviously the precursor. We'll jump straight in to Toulouse Harlequins at Stadium Toulouse on Sunday. Did you? Well, I did catch this. Toulouse obviously ran out. I think it was 38-26 winners in the end, with a reasonably late Juan Cruz Malia try, but it was far from plain sailing, and yeah, it was a pretty fascinating match. So yeah, where do you want to start? Should we go the first half? Toulouse. I want
to start at the beginning, really. The atmosphere. I thought Nick Mullins throughout this game was exceptional. Like, I don't think commentating is an easy job. And I think as soon as you start from our early footsteps into kind of doing recorded audio ourselves, it is a lot trickier than it looks. I thought he was phenomenal in terms of like getting the balance between talking too much, letting the experts speak, hyping it up. But there was one point where he was like, you know, he was like, I'm going to stop talking and we'll just let you guys soak in the atmosphere, because. And it was a lot of Mighty Quinn going on as well, not just LA Toulouse. I thought it was the atmosphere looked absolutely incredible, and that was partly the Quins fans bringing it as well. It looked like a decent amount.
Yeah, I saw some footage there. It looked like there was some guys really going for it. There were a few flares, pyros. Quite a few flags knocking about. One which did make me laugh, which was Surrey Quins, just because I feel like that's probably quite an obvious, sometimes you'll see, so for instance, I'm an AFC Wimbledon fan, for people who don't know, and there's a flag at the ground which is Basque Wombles, and it's the Basque, you probably know this, what's the flag called? The red, white and green?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it.
Almost sort of Union Jack kind of shape.
Yeah.
So that I would say is quite niche, and it raises some interest. You're like, there's some Basque Country Wimbledon fans, Harlequins fans in Surrey. I don't know. It really tickled me. But fair play. They travelled in massive numbers. It was loud. I know one of our mates was there. It said it, was pretty phenomenal.
Didn't regret it at all. Yeah.
No regrets at all. And not surprised. I mean, first half. It was pretty chaotic, wasn't it? And we saw some very good stuff from Quins, but I think at points we saw the very best of Toulouse as well.
I think, the first try, 4 minutes in, they came flying out the blocks. The offloading game was on point straight away. And that first try, I just remember my initial thought was, how on earth do you defend that? Because okay, so you win your own line out. That probably helps. Flamand was brilliant at line out time, but then you've got Cyril Bay makes first carry and makes yards after contact. Mearthu then makes what looks like quite a pedestrian carry, and then he just rugby league offload out of nowhere.
Flicks it.
The way like Malvaca, he's 118 kilos, and he's just running straight and then fixes the defence and out the back to Entrées. Just the skill set and like the use of each of their individual skill sets is just brilliant. Like, and that was off the cuff. Like, it's using your big carriers to get you over the gain line and offload, and then using, the skill set of your backs, Entrées chucking a 15, 20 metre pass. I just thought it was amazing. And that was without even that much DuPont in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then fair play to, the first, I can't remember exactly how it ended, but before the first try, there was a real like marauding move upfield as well, which Quins kind of managed to repel. And you're kind of thinking, for all, okay, it's early in the game, they've only scored one try, but for all of Harlequins' quality and ability to stay engaged, you're like, this feels quite different. Sure enough, go up the other end, rumble over with one of the more emphatic rolling ball tries you'll ever see. Yeah, it was on absolute skates.
That was the second try. I think the first one was I found it very surprising. Go. Yeah, how easy Quins had managed to get like they didn't have to play that many phases to score that try, and I was kind of like, okay, for all Toulouse's brilliance in attack, they're going to need to defend the pick and go game a bit better, and then the second try, as you said, was a proper motoring maul, which allowed Quins to stay in the game. I think those kind of Toulouse not quite being on it defensively in the tight bits in the first half. I thought Quins' defence was also very, very good. Like, they were able to stop a lot of the initial hits
thrown at them.
Yeah, but it was like it was the yards after contact from like a Miafu or Bai, and the kind of latching of the players onto, like, as soon as you kind of get like a Aldagiri or a Malvaca latching onto a Miafu, you might have already stopped Miafu, but then there's just an extra boost of power that Quins couldn't quite stop, and then that's when Toulouse got that full momentum. I thought the Toulouse pack is just, we kind of previewed it last week, just their ability to offload and carry is phenomenal. And then Quins kind of had that shocker, didn't they, with the Flamont try. That was a bit of a shocker, and that I think that was probably the key moment, because it suddenly
sucks all the momentum straight ahead again. Out of that kind of Quins mini comeback. And then for a period of whatever it was, maybe 15, 20 minutes after that, towards the end of the first half, it was fully one way. And it was like their ability, Toulouse's ability to turn defence into attack. Obviously, DuPont at the forefront of that. Costs is looking he was unreal against Dexter, wasn't he? But he's looking like a bit of a, I don't know, he's looking phenomenal.
Conrad Smith.
Just, and so powerful as well. Just that sort of real like nuggety aggression to go with all the kind of running lines and handling game. And it was full. There was actually the sort of try that wasn't, where I think Flamand knocks it on when he's, albeit trying to grab a speculative offload when he's through the gap. That is, if he grabs it and maybe gets one more away, we're talking sort of greatest tries of all time, Harlem Globetrotter stuff. At half time, it was looking like King Horner found his kicking boots. It was looking pretty ominous, I would say. And sure enough, as Harlequins often do, not just found a way, but were by far and away for 25, 30 minutes of that second half, the best team on the pitch.
There was a stat that came up around the 60-minute mark that the second half possession, Quins had 77% possession, which is, against Toulouse, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They played with so much, and it was because they were playing with so much pace. Like, Toulouse were brilliant at the breakdown. The counter-rucking in the first half was phenomenal, and that actually led to the Flamand try, and I think possibly one of the other tries. But like Malvaca, Cross, Rumat were just getting stuck in. But like the pace that Quins were playing with and some of the running lines again, I thought. So last week we were saying that some of the Toulouse, like the Quins players, just don't have guys in each their best players that Toulouse have a better player in each position. I am a Ntamack skeptic, I would say. I'm at the more skeptical end on Romain Ntamack. And so I was kind of going to go, actually, I possibly would have Smith. I thought he is a brilliant, brilliant player.
Yeah, he's class.
Certainly in that team, like the jury is still out internationally, but the way he runs that team and the way that back three interlink as well, and how he interlinks with the back three is so good to watch. And there is a real bit of magic about Marcus Smith.
Yeah, the Tyrone Green try, which comes from Smith, does really well to keep a box kick in play, doesn't he? It kind of goes deep. And Green runs it back, offloads, and then is back in position again to punch that line through off care. I thought that was phenomenal. Green was amazing all game as well. Like, what a resurgence.
So was Liner, like attack and defence. I thought Liner was great.
Were great. But yeah, one of the first games he played this year, Tyrone Green, was for London Scottish in the Premiership Cup. Played against Exeter at Sandy Park. Yeah. I think obviously sort of coming back from injury and a bit of game time, but he was brilliant. And I think a little bit alarm bells really for Toulouse, and particularly looking forward to the final, because I mean, as brilliant a try as it wasn't the first instance in that game of some pretty woeful sort of kick chase, really disjointed guys looking, well, benefit of the doubt, tired or lazy was how some of the defence, I think, in that second half looked. And obviously they're being stretched by team playing quickly, but I think without Willis, I don't think had his most effective game, but he was still scrapping around. Francois Cross was obviously man of the match and he made 21 tackles or something. And you kind of feel without a little bit of that industry from some of those guys, they might have folded, to be honest. I all the momentum was with Quins, and it was all kind of sucked out by the it was Jack Walker, wasn't it, who got done for a slightly ropey clean out, albeit pretty accidental, I think, makes contact with Dupont's head, and it just felt
looking,
bit,
isn't it?
Yeah, it didn't look great, and it was definitely a yellow card, but I think yellow was probably fair, but it sort of just it felt, it kind of deflated the whole thing after that. They obviously then go up the other end and fair play to Toulouse, having had no possession. The precision of that try, the two kind of
with the shift drive from the maul, from the line out,
just so good, and a hell of a finish from Malia as well.
They referenced it on commentary, didn't they, that Ramos passed early. Ramos didn't have his best game, I thought. He looked quite pissed off to be on the bench.
They did.
I'd be amazed if he doesn't. If he doesn't start the final, that could actually cost them, because I do think they need his goal kicking.
Yeah, I think they'll go
brilliant.
I think they'll go Kinghorn on the wing and Ramos
instead of Malia
at 50. Yeah, Kinghorn's no monk with the boot, is he? But two missed conversions is potentially, it could be enough, couldn't it? As you say,
we've still seen it before in Champions League, like against Toulouse with Ihai West. That kind of really cost La Rochelle that first year, didn't it?
Yeah. But what a game! Like it was fantastic.
It lived up to hype, didn't it?
It really did. And Quinn's fair play. I mean, I think we both thought the gap would be a couple of tries, but I always felt that it'd be a couple of tries without Harlequins really ever, being within a score or closer. And yeah, they were full value for it. Looking ahead to, who other than the guys who mentioned, Rob, I thought that was a lovely touch on a game with so many sparkling performances to call out the commentator as your star man up top for some excellent prose. But it sets up a hell of a final, you would think, with Leinster, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it was interesting because I'm now going to call out some more pundits after the game, because I was just milling around at home because I didn't actually watch it live, so I watched it yesterday, and I was listening to the stuff afterwards, and they were talking about how actually they reckon Toulouse were favourites. So Brian O'Driscoll, I think, was kind of being a bit coy and a bit nervous, and they were like, "Oh well, we saw the Leinster nerves and stuff like that." But I don't know. I don't personally think Leinster. I think Leinster go into it favourites. I don't think that. I think that was Brian O'Driscoll being a bit cute because and Sam Warburton and Ugo I think they backed him up. I found that weird that they all said Toulouse. I think they all said Toulouse. One of them might have gone Leinster, but I think it will be interesting to see. Like, they both are those teams that have a spell, don't they? For 10, 15 minutes, they have a spell where they're unstoppable, and it's just who's going to do what in each phase. I thought, like, for all the chat during the Saints Leinster game about them Saints being nervous and jittery and frenetic and whatever, and the occasion getting to them, I think that was partly it. But I think, like, the way Leinster defend looks so hard to play any rugby against.
Yeah.
And that could be the decisive thing. But then it comes down to what we always say about Toulouse. Can you stop Miafu, Bai, Malvaca, the ball carrying of those guys? It's interesting that they don't really have the back row doesn't do a lot of ball carrying. Like, they all seem to do the kind of unseen work. Like, Rumat did loads of rucking. Brilliant line out forward. Hit crosses, we know is a brilliant line out forward. We know he's an industrious tackler. Ball carrying's improved. Willis's ball carrying's improved. They don't do loads, whereas the whole Leinster, the Irish back row, the whole Leinster 8 do carry. It'll be. I mean, it's a fascinating game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so. And well
also, obviously, Rich, Leinster have got the best 9 in the world. So
yeah. I mean, I think there's probably
James Lowe taking a head knock during the game and suddenly thinking that Jamison Gibson Park was the best 9 in the world, or forgetting Antoine Dupont existed. Maybe
I think he's probably the second best 9 in the world. He's probably in the top 5 form players in the world at the moment. Like, he's been amazing, Gibson Park, particularly thinking where he kind of came from a few years ago, like this bench player, and he's the absolute, like, he's the heartbeat of them and Ireland now, really, isn't he? He's phenomenal. But I mean, that's I don't always quite buy into the one-on-one battles. I think it's a lot more fluid. But if there is ever a position that maybe in any given game you can kind of compare outright, the 2 9s is it. So I think that's so beautifully set up. But to your point, I think Leinster probably go in as favourites. I think all the cliches of big games, it's defence, isn't it, that wins them. I think also you talk about the ball carrying, offloading forwards like that Toulouse have. Like Furlong, Sheehan, McCarthy, they were all at it on Saturday as well. And Lowe obviously finds himself in space out wide, and like the form he's in as well is ridiculous. I think Toulouse are going to have to, albeit Leinster weren't at their best, so that can happen. But I think Toulouse have to step up defensively by a lot more than Leinster have to improve by from their performance against Northampton. Albeit, I know the scores were different, but I don't think that quite gives a true reflection of how poor at times Toulouse looked versus how comfortable for large swathes Leinster looked against Northampton.
Also, but Leinster have been Toulouse's kryptonite the last few seasons. Like, I remember we watched that game in Bordeaux ahead of the La Rochelle Chiefs semi, and it was kind of a bit of a non-game, wasn't it? Like, we were a little bit deflated just in a bar in Bordeaux, kind of hoping for a bit of atmosphere and a good game, and actually Toulouse were never really in it. Like, it's Ireland and Leinster have that element of just like, well, they can come out the blocks quickly and it's game over before, like the Scotland game in the World Cup for Ireland, that was game over before it had even begun, really. And I wonder if Leinster could do that, and will Toulouse have the comeback elements that La Rochelle have displayed in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yes, that vulnerability is there for Leinster, and Toulouse can do anything. Who knows kind of what the mentality of them is if they go down to an early lead, kind of deficit.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We'll obviously, we've got a few weeks, haven't we, till that takes place in North London. I'm sure we'll do a proper rundown in a couple of weeks when teams are out and so on. But I mean, I think on both those games, I think Northampton and Harlequins acquitted themselves amazingly. I think Northampton to get within 3 in Dublin is quite extraordinary, really, all things considered. And Harlequins were, up until the last 10 minutes, were arguably in the ascendancy, and one more score could have been very different. So yeah, fair play to both English sides. But I think it's probably the most exciting final we could have had, which is great news. Couple of minutes left before we welcome our guest. But did you catch any of Claremont Sharks at the Stoop? Which was
watched bits and bobs. I caught the end in the pub, but on my phone on Saturday. It was quite crazy kicking the ball away from Sharks to potentially let Claremont in, and then just a vintage. Just felt so French, that little brain fade of the crossfield kick, just because you're a bit bored and you haven't made any progress. I know that the French have a philosophy of hands or feet is the same thing, but it wasn't just, they were making ground and they just needed a penalty.
It was I very much like you kind of saw bits of it and then saw the highlights. So almost a bit of a shame as otherwise engaged on a bank holiday weekend, because I don't think you get tickets for 15 quid, and it wasn't exactly bouncing the Stoop.
I was surprised how empty it was, actually.
Sharks fans brought the noise, which is great, but you probably won't get much better value for quality international players per pound as you did there. Like, Sharks were loaded. Claremont dusted Stade Francais the weekend before, and they had some big names. There was Bracker was out, I think, which was
Moala and Racket was actually huge. But then Giron, as a replacement for Racket, also looks like a big bloke. Like, quite a few times he was carrying, I thought, is he a back row? Is he a prop? And then I was like, oh no, he's got 11 on his back. That's why he's quick. But Moala, I think Moala is just
morning of the match, wasn't it? Moala as well. I think he went down. Yeah.
And when he was less replaceable than Racker was. And to lose both of those guys who are massive units, and your big, certainly, I mean, Moala is just such a focal point in that midfield for them. So for their sake, I hope he's back. My sake, potentially, I hope he's back to play Perpignan. But who knows? I don't care if I'm not going.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, that sets them up with Gloucester, who beat Benetton as well, which, I mean, the Sharks had a kind of bit of probably a weird thing to say, because I was about to say how good it is to see Claremont kind of away from home mixing it with some of the real big boys, albeit the Sharks have been absolutely dreadful in the URC, but they still have an incredible team with Ox and Etzebeth and Lecagnoam, Rapimpi,
Nambi,
the name of the. And then the name of the fly half, the young guy, escapes me, who kicks like an absolute dream. And he
kicked some big goals.
Just another.
And that was what won them the game, because Claremont just kept giving away penalties. They were so overeager in that first half, and they actually, Sharks have scored 18 points, all from penalties, and they were long range ones. They were like 40, 50 meters, a lot of them.
And on that perhaps ominous note of another ice in the veins, goal-kicking South African, we'll take a very short break and be back with our special guest.
So we are joined by Rosbifs Rugby's first ever guest, which is incredibly exciting, both for me and Richard. We're joined by a man who has played 62 games in Pro D2 for Oyonnax and latterly Agen. However, his undoubted biggest achievement in his career so far is becoming follower number 15 of Rosbifs Rugby on Instagram and being our first ever podcast guest. But Zak Farrance, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Cheers, lads. Thanks for having me on. Privilege. It's an honour being the first.
Yeah, you can always say
grateful
when we're getting Courtney Laws and Antoine Dupont on. You'll be like, yeah, but Zak was first. You've joined us
and old Richard Barrington.
Yeah, he'll be next. Well, you've joined us from lunch with the boys. Who was there?
Oh, I was with a few of the boys, with Baz, Harry Sloan, Joe Maximu, Mikey, Ben Vulavula, who you'd know.
Yeah.
A few of the foreign boys in Agen. Nice bit of steak. Takes about 3 years to cook it, but it was nice by the time we finally got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting, with Agen. I think at one point we counted 6 English players, and you got a few other English speakers there.
Yeah.
I'm just absolutely how does it work with the squads? Just so many nationalities within a squad, and obviously a bit different when you got a few more English lads. But what's it like?
To be fair, this is the best foreign squad I've had. I've been obviously a few clubs that I've been at before. In Oyonnax, we had a great foreign squad, but I think this is the biggest. This is the biggest I've seen in France. There's so many foreign boys here. You obviously got a lot of Islanders, and there's a lot of English. Most English I've ever played with. And I think it's great. It's good for the boys. Obviously all the boys learn French and they get involved with the French culture. But then it's nice to have a little touch of home as well. You can call up the boys. You can have a coffee with them and relax. It is nice having two sides to it.
Is there a bit of a divide then? Is it the French and the foreigners, or is it how do you guys intermingle? Do you ever go for coffee with the boys with just the French lads?
But to be fair, there was about 6 French lads there today. I didn't mention their names. I just know the English boys. But no, we do mingle quite a lot. I think that's something that they try and do a lot in the French teams is integrate because obviously you're playing as a team at the end of the day. You need to be involved with each other. Yeah.
How do you? What are the integration kind of activities?
It normally starts with a bit of sign language from the English boys trying to communicate what we're going to do, and then someone will arrange a lunch, and then we'll all go meet up at a time. Probably some boys probably get the timings a bit wrong. No, let's say fucking 6 o'clock in the afternoon. You got the English boys turning up at 6 a.m. thinking it's breakfast club, and then you got the French boys turning up in the evening.
You've obviously been there a few years, right? But how have some of the English lads who have joined? How's the language? Do you have to act as a middleman in bars and cafes and stuff, or pick it up?
So to be honest, obviously the club puts on lessons once a week, so the boys have to go to that. I'm going to be brutally honest, but it depends what kind of bloke you are. You're either going to pick it up, you're keen to learn, or you're the other end of the spectrum where you're obviously not that academically great in school and you're not going to pick it up and you use a bit of franglais, which was probably me, I'm not going to lie, at the beginning.
Where are you at now? Have you sort of got somewhere on the franglais scale? Enough to work with?
It's been 10 years, lads. It's been 10 years, lads. If I weren't speaking French by now, there's no hope. So it got forced upon me. But to be fair, saying that, my brother's really good. My brother's fluent as well, and he's only been here about 4 years. He's really good. Even I look at him sometimes like, mate, how do you know that? We're going out speaking to people.
Nice.
I guess that takes us back to the start. You said you've been in France for 10 years. So you were in Saracens Academy.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Oyonnax at age 18. How on earth does a lad from Kent in the Saracens Academy end up going to Oyonnax in Pro D2 at 18? It's just, I'm so intrigued as to how that came about.
Wild story. I was when I was younger, my dream from the age of 14 was to be a professional rugby player, and I was going to make it no matter what. Even if no one wanted me, I was going to make it. So I was at Saracens Academy, 14 to 18. I went to Oakland's College as well. There's a few boys that played there, and I was with Jack Singleton. he signed at Worcester, and I must have mentioned to him, "Oh, mate, I'd play in France. I'd play anywhere. I just want to be a professional rugby player." And then one day, he had his agent contact me. He was like, "Mate, do you want to play in France?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I will. I'll play anywhere. Like, sign me up. How do I become a rugby player?" A couple of weeks later, you got trial at Reeve and a trial at Oyonnax, and then I done the trial at Oyonnax, and then Oyonnax was like, "Mate, you've got 2 days to sign this contract." I was like, "Yo, pen to paper. Here we go." Didn't even know what Oyonnax was, mate.
I mean, by some of the results you see at Oyonnax, I'm not sure that many of the players playing against them know where Oyonnax is. Like,
it is a tough place to go. I think the first winter there, I remember half the winter games we played under snow. They just brushed because they got 3G pitch down there, synthetic pitch. They just brushed the. I'm like, lads, we can't play in this. This is a hazard. They're like, "Oh, you English scared? Huh? Scared? No scrum, no win." It was real like that.
and what was it like then? Did you come out here? Oh, out here? Did you go out to France on your own?
Yeah, mate. So I think it was quality the way they've got their setup in France. I spoke a bit about it before, but you sign. It's like the senior academy stuff in England, but they've got a full squad. So you sign with the Espoirs, which is like their academy version over here. But mate, I moved over to Oyonnax and they gave me a 2-bedroom apartment. I was on a decent salary, well, for an 18-year-old rugby player, I was on a decent salary. You get looked after. I mean, my first five months there, I could eat at a hotel. They'd sorted out food for me. I could just go down there and eat lunch and dinner. It's pretty cool what they set up for the boys.
That's class. Is that just the general? I mean, it's obviously in the spotlight a lot, but is that just because French clubs have more money than like English clubs, or is it like culturally they're willing to because the Espoirs is such a thing? Like they chuck money at the Espoirs.
Yeah, no, I think it's because they know they can breed great players through their Espoirs as well. Like you look at everyone that's played, all of them have been through the Espoir system. It's not like you get the miracle story in England where someone's been to uni and then a few years later they get picked up. No, it's like I'd say 95% of their players, if not 100% of their players, all come through Espoir systems. Because everyone's got an Espoir. Even you go down the road and like a national team, they'll have an Espoirs as well. And they all, maybe they don't have the same sort of money or they're not getting paid, but they've all got that sort of under 23, under 21 setup, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I remember with Blognac. Oh, go on, Rich.
No, I was just going to ask because like one of the big, obviously like French rugby cliches and like Pro D2 cliches is around just like the size of the packs and like massive lads. Is that the case in the Espoirs as well? Like you're coming into the second row. Are there some mutants there, or are they kind of feeding you up ready for the big time?
Well, no, mate. When I come to play so it was under 23s. I think it's under 21s now. When I first come over, I was like that stick insect. I couldn't believe some of the boys I was running out against. We had this one guy who's a Brazilian. He played for Brazil as well. And the guy was just an absolute machine. Must have been 140 clicks. I was 100 clicks wet. You know what I mean? 100 kilos. Packing it down with this guy, like I don't know how this works. Like, he'd be tearing up first team if he was playing for the first team.
How do you get?
It is a bit of a baptism of fire, but I suppose food, mate. I said to the agent at the time, I was like, mate, I want to get bigger. Like, would they give me protein and stuff? And he just looked at me and went, "You're going to France, lad. If they want you to get big, you're going to get big."
Fairly like abrupt approach, is it? The early nutrition just feeds
about what favourite protein they're going to give.
That's class. Talk to us then about your time at Oyonnax. Like you made your Pro D2 debut a few years after that, like 2018, 2019. So it's quite a long apprenticeship in the Espoirs then, for 4 years.
Yeah, mate. It was a bit of a up and down situation for me. I love the club. I love the place. Don't get me wrong; it's a great place. I love the coaches there at the moment, especially Jai Lab. He's obviously an English coach. And when I first went to Oyonnax, he was captain of the first team. So it was a smooth integration. Like he helped me along, and obviously then he became my coach a few years down the road. But yeah, I didn't get my debut until a couple of years after, mate. I was riddled with injuries. Obviously, I was not as big as everyone else. I remember my first 3 months I done my ACL and then got back on my feet, cracked it, done well. Then after that, I done my ankle. I had to have another surgery. It's another 3 months out. But they're all like little step backs. But So I'd like to back myself to think I would have played for them a lot more and a lot earlier, but I didn't end up playing in my third year, which was great. I still had a load of Espoir games under my belt. Um, but yeah, and then it's just the way rugby goes. You know what I mean? There's always highs, always lows. You're always going to get played, and you're always not going to get played. And I did have a lot of different coaches when I was there as well. I went for a lot of different coaches. I think there was Olivier Azam was there, Adrian Bonanetto, loads of different head coaches come in. Which they've got like if you look at Oyonnax now, they've got a really good stability. So obviously Joe's been there for I think 6 years now, and the progression they've made in those 6 years is incredible.
And like, what's that first game in Pro D2? What's that like? Are you like, oh wow, everyone's massive? Is it, oh wow, this is way too quick? Or oh, this is all right now because the Espoir is so good? Or like, what's the kind of, you're going to go into a presumably pretty decent crowd as well? And
yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was Colomiers away. It was at their gaff, and obviously Oyonnax is always a big team in the Pro D2. So wherever you go, all their city gets behind them. So I remember sitting on the bench, and in Colomiers back then, the bench was in where the fans are. I remember all the fans just looking down at us, booing at us. It was like, that's why we sitting here. Yeah, and it was good. No, it was a lot quicker. That's why it was a lot quicker because obviously the Espoirs are just as physical. It's a physical under 23s. They're still big blokes. You know what I mean? But it was just a lot quicker. And obviously, he's extremely nervous as well.
where's the best or worst place you've been then in Pro D2 in terms of away fans, best atmosphere, best ground you've been to, that sort of thing? Like, where is it most like the most frenzied? That sounds pretty mental to be sat in the kind of home fan section, but that can't be the only place. It's all gets a bit rowdy.
No, obviously it changes every year. Because obviously you get Bayonne that have been fluctuating, they come down. Sometimes Perpignan, them two places are very tough to play at. They've got really good fans. But this year, I'll say it's Vans. Their fans are unbelievably behind them. I remember there, I made a high tackle. The ref gave me a yellow card. Walking off, the crowd go absolutely wild, booing, go mental. The ref like, I need to check this again. Checked it, give me a red card straight. I was like, mate, you can't be doing that because of the crowd. Absolute bananas.
Were you? Was it a shocker? You were hard done by. That's a problem.
No, it was a bad tackle, but I thought, come on, you give me the yellow, mate. You can't be doing any more than that. You can't be changing it to a red straight away because the fans are booing.
That is outrageous.
Mate, I'll try and find the clip and show you boys. It always clean off.
Because the highlights, like quite often you only see, like you don't see. Sometimes you see the yellows. Sometimes you don't see them, and like sometimes you'll see a yellow in the highlights, but they don't show the red. I'm like, what has happened there? Like. I mean, there's a red in basically every game in French rugby from what I can see. Like, it's carnage.
Yeah.
But then, so you then moved to Jersey, kind of around COVID sort of time. How come you left Oyonnax? And
so what happened? I didn't get a lot of games. My second to last year in Oyonnax, so I didn't get a lot of games. And I asked Joe. Me and Joe was like, his objective was to get back in the top 14. I was a young lock, so obviously in the hierarchy, I wasn't obviously getting enough game time that I wanted to get. He had a lot of experience locked at that time. His objective was to get top 14. Totally respect it. So I was just like to him, mate, I want to go somewhere I can play. So me and him was trying to work out a few solutions, and then he. I don't know, I was like to him, I'm going to try and go back to England. He was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, make sure Jersey's the right club for me, etc. I went back to England, and then I had a really good time at Jersey. So I think I spent a season and a half there. So it's during COVID, that first season, we only played about 10 games. But I think that little step back into English rugby, like I really learned a lot as well, because it's completely different to over here. Learn a lot about fitness and the way to train and nutrition and stuff like that. So it was a good eye opener, and I really enjoyed my time over there. And I'm still in contact with a lot of the coaches and players from just that year I was there, 18 months.
And then I guess what made you want to? Were you always was that always like a temporary thing to then, you've loved your time in Pro D2, you want to go back to France?
Yeah, and I always had the. My goal was to try and crack Premiership. I always wanted to come home and try and crack Premiership. Things don't work out how you want them to work out most of the time. You just got to adapt to it. So Went back, didn't get what I wanted to get, and then there was a medical joker. Agen were looking for a medical joker. They needed a lock, and obviously I'm Jiff, so for them it ticked a lot of boxes. And it was halfway through the season, so I thought, why not? Why not go back to Pro D2 and try and play over there?
Did you know about the whole GIF thing before you moved to Oyonnax at such a young age, or was it just I just want to play professional rugby wherever? And then this is
yeah, it was. I just want to play professional rugby wherever. And then my agent was like to me, mate, you're going to be Jiff. It's like, you do know this is gold dust. I was like, yeah, sweet, mate. Do I get a passport? That's all I was worried about. He's like, no, you don't get a passport. I was like, all right then, well, I'm Jiff. Like, I don't know what it means, but looking back at it now, it's probably one of the best decisions or one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
I don't want to go into details, but do you, do you get a little bit more cash than some of the English lads because you're Jiff? Or is it the other way around?
No, I don't know. I don't ask them about their salaries. I just crack on like.
The one thing I was trying to work it out, and I had a little look this morning. You joined Agen the year that they got their first win for a long, long time. So they did a whole year in the top 14 where they got 2 points and got relegated. And then you joined that year after that. And it was, you guys only just stayed up, I think, didn't you? You were about 13th, 14th by the end of that season. Was that, had they won by the time you joined?
This is where it was crazy because a lot of people were like, mate, why are you going to Agen? I was like, no, they've been in the top 14. I just had to work it out logically. I was like, they can't be that bad. They can't have lost all these games in the top 14, then go to Pro D2 and lose all these games. I was like, they can't. It's not possible. Like they're not going to drop 3 divisions in 2 years. But yeah, they just won 1 game when I got here. I think they'd beaten Aurillac at home, which is the first win in I want to say 36 games or something ridiculous like that. But they had a great group of boys, great group of players that year that I joined, and then obviously Bernard come in, he's not here anymore, but he was the head coach for my past couple of years here, and he was great. Great coach, a great team manager. I think he runs his clubs like a military style. Well, not military style. It's not that strict, but like he's old school, and I think that works perfectly for me. You know, boys can't take the piss at the end of the day. So it's his way or the highway. And if you're on board, you're going to go well, like we did last year. We finished in the top 6, done well. Obviously, we didn't finish where we wanted to finish, but yeah. And then, but to be honest, that was one of the greatest half seasons of rugby I've ever played. I think I played most of the games that year. We was in the relegation battle. I think we had to win Nevers at home, which was great. Once we'd won that, we was definitely safe. And that was it was an intense end of season, but it was good at the same time.
Sounds like you were the turning point, mate, in their fortunes.
I wish, lad.
When you come into a club like Agen, so obviously Brody at that point, but like really historic old club, like kind of won it all back in the day. Is there? I don't know. Do you feel that as a player, or is that sort of in the past and? Or, are the fans on your back about how 30 years ago the boys were tearing up? Like, how does it... Yeah, is there a difference in expectation there?
You've hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, the club was absolutely massive back in the day, competing in European rugby right at the top. So and a lot of them fans were still alive to see all of that. Like, you go in the town and then like Phillippe Sella's still around the club now. He comes in, he's at every game, he's around us most weeks. Obviously, he's a legend of the club, legend of France. So it's like... It's tough because obviously you understand that the fans, they've witnessed all of that. They've witnessed all that greatness. And now you've got boys that are, obviously you've got a good team, but obviously struggling at the moment. For them, they're pretty fuming, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? You'd be fuming as well if your team was back in the day, top of the log, and now struggling. But I hope things turn around for them.
Good to know that if it's like park football, village cricket, or professional rugby, there's some old boy lurking around the club who says it was better in my day. Doesn't change where you go by the sounds of things.
Over here, mate, it's an old boy with a fake Facebook account that'll be commenting on the pages.
Burner account just to abuse you.
Flagging boys off, that's all that is.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, Rich and I play at the same cricket club, and apparently they were the best club in England, even though they never won anything in about 2008. So a lot of them are still like, they're just coming back to the club with their kids. So they've got plenty of time on their hands to abuse you in the bar afterwards. But
Welcome to the club, lads. You know how it feels.
Yeah, slightly different when Phillippe Sella is kind of saying, "Oh, lads, we were better in my day," versus some fat bloke from Surrey.
He doesn't have to say anything. Just him walking around is enough. Just his atmosphere around the club is enough.
On a like slightly, well, maybe not slightly more serious note, we talk a lot about like the connection between like fans and community and like the clubs and the players. Like, when you're out and about, do you like chat to the fans? Do you like interact with them? Do you chat to them after games? Like, what is the connection that like you guys have as a squad with the local town and community?
No, I think as a team, you have in France, especially in France, you have to be quite close with them. There's a lot of there's a Agen, they're called. They run like a team supporters group. So they like the main fan base, and then you can join it. They go to all the away games. Like, we're very close with them, and they set up the big. I don't know if you've ever seen it on TV, but when Agen play in some of the stands, they've got the big flags. So they create all of those. Like, they're really good. So we've got a great relationship with them. But yeah, when you're out and about, a lot of people, especially in Agen, everyone, I think the majority of people know who the rugby boys are. So you just got, do you know what I mean? You always got to be nice and chat, and no one's ever tried to slag us off in the town. Everyone's always nice. It's just on Facebook after they'll be a bit rude, but.
Yeah, to be fair, that Montauban game I went to, the Agen fans were absolutely class in one section of the stand. Like, it was absolutely class. I guess the other thing with like the fans is, and Agen this season in particular are a good one for it, the home and away thing in French rugby. Why? How? Like, Agen, I think the only away win was that Montauban game that I was at, but like that's their only away win all season, and then they're nearly unbeatable at home.
Mate, it is berserk. They normally, French clubs normally just send all the foreign, because the foreign boys, we don't mind like home or away. For us, it's a game of rugby. Like in France, it's like, no, you defend your home, like it's your castle. Like, do you know what I mean? Home games are so big, and away games, it's like, right, if you win an away game, that's great, but it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not the be all and end all. And I've been before. I've had coaches that have literally had two teams. You've got an away team and a home team. It's like all the big dogs, all the French big dogs will be at home, like loving it. Send all the foreign boys, all the Espoirs to the away games.
But why do like the big names just not fancy it? Like, is it they don't fancy it, or like they can't be asked, or just it's scary?
Most of the boys do fancy. Oh mate, honestly, doesn't. It's just the way it is over here. It's honestly the way it is. I remember the first game of last season, we beat Provence away. And like Joe Maximi is one of the English boys here. It's like we were going wild. I was at the club the year before. We was going wild. Like, boys are in tears, all jumping over each other. And he's like, "Lads, what is going on? We've just won a game. That's all it is."
You mentioned Van earlier, like, who obviously like sounds like a bit of a fortress. They're kind of top of the pile. Are they, like, regardless of being a hostile place to play, are they, you know, from having played against them, do you think that's reflective of where they're at? Because they sort of feel like last few years maybe come from nowhere a little bit. They're absolutely tearing up. Like, are they the ones you think, Christ, room for like a proper day out here? Or the few others in that mix as well?
I think it goes back to that thing that I said earlier about with Oyonnax. I think it's about consistency. I think if you check where their coach, I think their coach has been with them since the beginning, since I was at Federal One, mate. So obviously he's kept sort of a lot of the same sort of boys as well. And when you play, they're just so well drilled, and they're so well gelled together. Do you know what I mean? It's like they all know where each other is going to be when they're throwing the pass, and especially when you go to their gaff and try to play them at home, mate. They've got their stadium's always packed, and their stadium's so close to the pitch. You're playing against, feels like playing against 100 blokes. Honestly.
And the crowd gives you a red card as well.
Oh mate, terrible. But we did beat them there though. We did beat them there a couple of years ago. We beat them there at the end of the last play of the game. We were already up, and it was we had a scrum, and Richard Barron's on, obviously had loads of experience, and he was just time wasting at this scrum. I think he must have spent about 5 minutes there, He's like, no, lads, my setup's not right. My setup's not right. Come on, up we go again. I've looked, we're in the red. I'm like, fucking hell, Baz, well done, lad. You just wasted 5 minutes there.
Oh, I love that. The English lads bringing the dirty tactics to French rugby. Who would have thought?
He's like, the French boys just want to have a scrum. Baz is there, he's rubbing his belly, doing his shoelaces up, haven't put a sluice in.
Yeah, pretend he's wearing contact lenses. Performance enhancing schnurrs. Yeah, I think a few of our mates believed in that theory. Yeah, but we've messaged quite a bit on Instagram since you became our 15th follower. And you've said that you're just it seems like you're a genuine fan of Pro D2. Like, you love it and you think it's a great league. A lot of people say it's a slog. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's great, but yeah, it's a long slog. Like, why do you love it? Why is it good?
Like, it is a great league. It's obviously boys want to play top level. You want to play top 14 and Premiership, and you know what I mean? I think Pro D2 is the next best thing. I think it's one of the second best leagues in Europe, I'd say. There's not really many leagues that can compare. Obviously, the teams, everyone can play. I think everyone would everyone in top six would do all right in top 14. You know, they would stick it out. Look at Oyonnax, maybe they've lost a few games, but they've also beaten a few big teams. They might yo-yo and go straight back up. I just think it's a great league for development as well. But like I said on another video I've done, not a lot of boys are developed at, like, everyone develops at different ages. I mean, do you know what I mean? You can go into the championship, play semi-pro, and I feel like you get lost over there. Over in Pro D2, it's competitive week in, week out. You're always playing against big teams, you're always playing against internationals, current internationals. So I think it's a great league.
Who's that? So I was trying to work it out. I picked out a few of the games through your back catalogue of, like, who's like the best, like, player or best name that you've, like, played with or against. Because obviously you've got current Agen squad. I'm thinking Tane Takalua, great set of calves, Tongan captain. You've got Alex Buran, like, being plucked out of nowhere in your brother's position at tired props into the France squad. But, like, are there any, like, big names that you've kind of played with or against? You're like, how the fuck am I here?
There's a few, lad. There's honestly, my time at Oyonnax, there was a few. Obviously, Vincent Dabati, he's coaching there now. He obviously, towards the end of his career, I remember, mate, we played against Carcassonne. I was only a nipper back in the day. He caught the ball. One bloke's gone to tackle him, knocked himself completely out. He's knocked two blokes out with one carry, and I'm behind him like, go on, lad, keep going. Riding his back, it's a big walrus. He was a machine. But no, the best player that I've ever played with, it has to be, it's not even an international. I lived with him as well, Ben Botica. He was absolutely class in his prime.
Really?
Yeah, he won top 14 player of the season. The year Oyonnax got relegated. I think it's one of the only ever non-international players to win that. So that's he's playing for Angoulême at the moment.
Yes, that's why I tried to wear a bit of kit for every call that's related. I don't have any Agen or Oyonnax stuff, and neither does Rich. But I know your brother played at Saxby, so I've got a hat and t-shirt.
He was real talent, and he was a good bloke as well. So I love playing with him. He's probably one of the best players. Yeah,
he's become a bit of a cult hero at Saxby. He's been brilliant this season. He kept him up.
He was class for us as well. He's a class player, mate. I just think he's had a bit of bad luck the past few years, but he'll get back on his feet.
The names that I found from your back catalogue, Lionel Boxeast, that was a real. I was like, wow. But then also, like, a bit more relevant, Emilien Gaeton, who's class, and Paul Grau, the new Antoine Dupont.
Yeah, I played with both of them. That was my first year at Agen. Both very exciting talent. So it just goes to show, though, boys that play in Pro D2, there's so much talent in the Pro D2 that's obviously knocking on the doors at most top 14 clubs, and in other cases, knocking on the doors at international level. I mean, you're not really going to find that anywhere else in the world. The French are developing rugby on a different level.
Who's winning Pro D2 this year then?
Ooh. I'm going to be rogue with it. I'm going to go the dark horse of Dax.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
I love that. I mean, that's
I love an underdog.
Nicera as well on the wing. I've been calling him the next Rapeni Thau. Like, he is an absolute jet.
I just think it's incredible what they've done. They've obviously come up, finishing top 6. no one really believed in them, but I think they're great. Great, obviously, shows what rugby's all about. Seeing them boys in the top six, and I don't know many of their players. I don't think anyone does. They're obviously a great team, doing well at the moment, and if they go all the way, mate, I think it'd be unbelievable.
Shows how good Nationale is as well.
Exactly. It shows that it's just French rugby, mate. It's unbelievable.
Who do you think in that access match? Probably be against like Bayonne or Montpellier, most likely. Which one of those top six do you think is most well suited to turning over a Montpellier, say?
It's got to be someone with a big home fan base. Like the past couple of years, them top 14 clubs. Even when I was at Oyonnax, we played Grenoble, but we come down. We had to play at Grenoble because we was in the top 14, so we had to play the access match. I think it was the first year we done it, and we got smashed by them at their gaff. So it's like whoever's got their stadium was full. I've never seen Grenoble Stadium like that before. It's a derby as well, but their stadium was full. It's got to be someone with massive vans, mate. Vans get the access match. I mean, they could be definitely turn over whoever it is that comes to their gaff.
They should get there as well, top of the league, and then
them and Provence playing heads all year, doing really well. Two great teams.
And then who's going down? All right, it looks like it's going to be Montauban now, isn't it? And they first ever access match for Nationale as well.
Yeah, that's what the boys were talking about that at lunch. We might boys be keen to go and watch it wherever it is because it's interesting. No one really. Do you know what I mean? No one really knows what's going to happen there. So definitely a game to watch. Be a very interesting game. But it's either going to be Rouen or Montauban, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, these next two games, mate, got some unbelievable games coming up.
And Agen have just given up. They've let Biarritz let Biarritz off the hook, didn't they?
There's a big fighting spirit here, mate. Don't worry about that. The boys are on form. No one likes losing. It's just professional sport, mate.
Yeah. Nice one, Zach. That's been absolutely class. I've absolutely loved that.
No, good lads. We'll do round 2 in about 8 months. I'll be your second. Second. Be your first and second.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Well, we need to get. I need to get out to a Zak Farrance game at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, we will. We'll schedule in for about 8 months.
Perfect.
Nice one.
Wicked. Cheers, Zach.
That's right, lads. Thanks for having me on. I'll keep in touch.
Nice one.
All the best, lads.
Mate.
Thanks very much, mate. Good luck.
Cheers, mate.
Right, looking ahead to the top 14. It's back after a week off. And Pro D2's back after a week off as well. A rare fallow week with the European Cup semi-finals. Top 14 this weekend. Perpignan Clermont, as discussed. Rob, you may or may not be at that game. We don't know just yet, but you'll be in the vicinity if nothing else.
And we've just established that I've been invited to lunch by one of the supporters group in desperate hope that they might speak some English. They've ended up inviting me for lunch, even though they've said they don't speak English. But yeah, I mean, when I eyed up this weekend away, I looked at this fixture as this could be really key in the relegation battle. But since then, Perpignan have been flying, and actually it's quite a big one for them. Clermont, as one of the two sides to have actually played last week, might go with a slightly weakened team, and actually Perpignan might end up at the top 6 this weekend, which is remarkable from where they were. And the fact it's so hard to get tickets for this game, both at the initial opening and on the resale, suggests to me that, as Zach was saying on our interview just now, Perpignan fans love one of the rowdiest. I think they are feeling the vibes in Perpignan from what I can see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, earlier in the year, I think they go pretty well in terms of attendances, but they haven't been selling out much up until now, basically. I think it's definitely an indictment of well, pretty remarkable, not turnaround as such, because they've always been sort of there and thereabouts, but a couple of months of real dominance in their fixtures. Yeah, we'll wait to see if we have a correspondent in the ground or not, or just in a bar with some local Catalans. Racing played Bayonne.
Do you know where that game is?
No, I don't, but I do know Racing occasionally play. I can't remember the name of the ground, but I think is it there where they've hosted the odd game before?
I
Is it where they had to move a fixture because Ed Sheeran was playing at La Défense?
I don't know if they've played there before, but it is at the Stade Abbé des Champs, which is the home ground of football club Auxerre, which is actually in kind of towards Burgundy, like Chablis region. So quite a long way out of Paris, but not miles away.
Yeah, I feel like they have done this. Maybe one for next week. I'm pretty sure they've done this before. But yeah, very cool. Love a little outground. Big fan.
I wonder if a man who started his career at Auxerre, one of the greats of the game, will be there. Eric Cantona.
Oh, was he? Did he
started work. Yeah.
Oh, good knowledge.
I'm surprised they're not playing at like Massy though, or somewhere like that. You know, like a Nationale, or one of the out. I don't know. Or Parc de France. Maybe,
who knows? Maybe brings Bayonne into it a little bit, given their previous exploits in Paris. Yeah, we'll see. Interesting to see how they load up for that one. And then at the same time, we've got Castres Montpellier, two teams who, well, we know about Montpellier's travails. Castres struggled a little bit of late.
They're not out of it at all, though.
They're not out of it at all, but equally, you'd say there's probably a little opportunity for Montpellier there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of opportunity for Montpellier. They've not got the worst run in themselves. Castres have also got a semi-decent run in, so it's not quite do or die for either of them, but also a loss for either of them could actually consign them to a pretty rubbish end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And obviously anyone that's wanting tickets for Alice Cooper later in the summer may have been able to pick up that tickets to that game.
Just a crowd full of like glam rock and metal heads and cheering them on. Toulon, Lyon, whether they're going to get more than another point away from home, probably not. I think we can gloss over that. Po, Oyonnax. Oyonnax off the back of that win against Castres, albeit off the back of an implosion. Po, I think you would fancy them there to keep themselves in the top six hunt. And then the late kickoff on Saturday, Bordeaux-Bègles, La Rochelle. That feels tasty. Bit of a Atlantique derby.
It's a fascinating game, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, you sort of. I mean, La Rochelle can go kind of full noise across the board now, can't they? You wonder, you wonder if they might have just not run out of steam as such, but it's a lot to. Feels like they've got like a real not mountain to climb in the typical cliche sense, but it feels like a hard slog for them to get to pick themselves up off the canvas after that drubbing in Dublin and then come back and do the business here.
I think the week off could have done them the world of good, though. That's the interesting element of this, because Bordeaux obviously was stunning against Bayonne. They really were majestic. And Clermont, not Clermont, La Rochelle, they really needed that break, given like how just tired they look this whole season. It could be, 1 week to reset, 4 games, let's give it our best shot to make something of this group and this season and not let it all be a bit of a letdown. But that said, I can't really see them getting a result at UBB. I just think the way they played in the last, and also La Rochelle were not great in the last round. Scraped to win at home against a kind of weaker Toulon side. So I'd be backing UBB in that one, especially if Lucu and Jalabert turn up the same way they did against Bayonne.
Yeah, you'd think so. And then the sort of real nice weekend ender, top two, Toulouse, Stade Francais, and you wonder maybe you would expect a few of the big hitters to be maybe rested, rotated a little bit, but I don't know. Will Stade see this as an opportunity to catch them after having a week off? I don't know. This feels like properly interesting, doesn't it? Stade Francais have won loads away from home, albeit then got absolutely smoked down at the Marcel Michelin a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, how they're going to line up, I don't know. Contrasting styles feels a real one for the nerds. This,
yeah, it's going to be the kind of attack versus defense sort of thing, almost, isn't it? With these two, I tell you one big name who is unlikely to be playing, and I think that is probably Blair Kinghorn. Don't know if you've seen some of the footage of his nose following the game, and now kind of full Katie Price plasters everywhere all over his nose. Yeah, I'd imagine he might get arrested. But Toulouse haven't lost at home all season, and we've talked so many times about their depth. So I just think, I think they probably will have enough. I think Stade are just starting to stutter a little bit, given their last couple of performances. I know they got that late win against Bayonne at home, but perhaps about running out of steam.
Possibly, yeah. You'd think Stade they're as good as kind of, you'd say they're in the last six. Big carrot, obviously, of a home semi-final, even if it's to sneak a couple of or a bonus point out of this. Also, a big sort of, again, you don't know who they're going to pick, but potentially a bit of a performance and a sort of a bit of an opportunity to lay down a statement, I suppose, in terms of can they mix it away from home against the very best, even if they're missing one or two with the sort of barrage and the playoffs around the corner. I'm really intrigued by this. I think gonna have to find a little corner to watch it. No doubt you'll find a little bar somewhere, hopefully showing it in Perpignan, Narbonne, wherever it is you're going to end up.
So, yeah, assuming I'm not watching the Narbonne game, who knows? That's I think that's a fascinating game. I think I reckon Ramos will play, and he could have a bit of a point to prove, which could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, could be.
You talk about points to prove for Stade. I think there's could be some points to prove, or a bit of a shot window for some of those Toulouse players with the finals coming up to kind of make themselves undroppable, basically.
Yeah, to get on the plane. Could you? That's on the Sunday, isn't it? Could you detour to Toulouse from? Are there any tickets going?
I haven't looked at tickets just because I don't know. I think I could end up doing quite a lot of travel otherwise, and as easy as travel is in France. Also, the tickets are just that bit more expensive. So, my ticket for Friday night is €10, whereas typically Ernest Vallon is, because it's such a premium place and such a hard ticket to get hold of, it is the kind of €65-75 sort of area. Still cheaper than a lot of UK places, but it's just that's that. And the train is that little bit more expensive than Carcassonne, Narbonne, Béziers sort of thing.
Nice. Well, it should be a cracking round as well as we kind of reach the denouement. Speaking of which, we are into almost unbelievably the final two rounds of Pro D2. I remember when we were in France watching the World Cup back in early September. The Pro D2 season was 4 weeks in, and they were playing midweek games between the World Cup, which was a really nice touch. But that feels like a long time ago, and we're nearly there, albeit with the playoffs to come as well. Again, you're going to be our man in the ground at Béziers, but is there anything else that draws your attention this week? Van, I just spoke to Zach about Fortress Van. They host Brive this Thursday, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually, so the top two are wrapped up in terms of the home semis. We're pretty much there as to who the bottom two are going to be as well. So the kind of battles are only really who's going to be the automatic relegation side and the top six. But remarkably, almost every game this week has something riding on it. Van v Brive, you've got a team that play great attacking rugby at home against a side that's trying to get into the barrage. The game that I'll be at, Béziers v Nevers, is a pretty similar one in that you've got a kind of side that at home plays lots of free-flowing rugby against a very physical side. So Biarritz, Béziers are at home to Nevers. Béziers are pretty much locked in. They're locked in, and they can't now get a top two slot. They need now to win to make sure that they get that home semi the home barrage place. Nevers are level on points with Mont-de-Marsan, who are currently sixth. So if they lose, they're not out of the race for the barrage. And we could still end up seeing this game in a few weeks' time. But both sides kind of do quite need a win. But I reckon Béziers. So Béziers are aiming for 10,000 for this game, which I had a little browse of the context for that. The Stonex Stadium is 10,500 people, and Sale, I think, have got above 10,000 once this year at Christmas time. So it's just like, that is astonishing, really, in terms of fan attendances. You've got what could have been a bit of relegation decider a few weeks ago, Rouen v Saxe V. Saxe V are now safe. They're actually in 10th, but Rouen are now, remarkably, having been bottom all season, a win away from not being very bottom and not in the automatic slot, because they're only 3 points behind Montauban, who are at home to Mont-de-Marsan. Mont-de-Marsan need the win to cling on to their barrage spot. Montauban really desperately need that win, because the following week they go to Aurillac, which is a horrible place to go, although they could get away with it because Aurillac will be playing for nothing. But to have any chance, you don't want to be going into the last weekend bottom, I don't think. Especially as Rowan's home form is so good. They've won 6 in a row at home now, so you'd imagine they'd get that win against the Saxe V side. They're safe. Could be all changed. Biarritz are not technically or mathematically kind of safe. They are only 7 points, I think 7 points above Montauban. And so they could still end up in the access match slot. They're at home to Provence, who are one of the strong sides. Zach said, Van and Provence are the sides that are playing really well this season. I mean, you'd like to think they can sneak something at home, like a point, before they have to go to Brive next weekend, who will probably be fighting for that last barrage spot. They see themselves as a big club. They're wanting to get back into top 14. They're going to be fighting for everything to get in that barrage slot. So it's, again, Biarritz a side not wanting to go into the last weekend not safe. So it's there's a hell of a lot to play for.
Yeah,
and then apart from Valence Romans versus Aurillac, which is a legit dead rubber, a side that's not won away from home all year against one of the best. I think they've lost 2 at home, Valence Romans, and not for ages. So yeah, Dax again. Zach's outside tip for promotion at home to Agen. So that could put they could end up, depending on the Béziers and Grenoble results, although we would back Béziers and Grenoble to get home wins. Dax could in theory end the weekend with a home barrage game. So yeah, and they can secure their slot in the barrage this weekend as well.
Yeah. All to play for, as they say, is quite amazing actually. How few at the end of a season that long, just how much there is to play for at both ends of the table. Is that middle kind of chunk is so congested. It's fascinating. It'll be awesome to see where we end up going into the last game or the last week rather, and the permutations. I'll be honest, I hadn't realised quite how far Rouen had closed the gap. They were pretty much dead and buried, weren't they, about a month ago? And they've just snuck up, which is great testament to them.
3 points behind. They can't catch Biarritz in 14th, but they are 3 points behind Montauban in 15th.
Yeah, and therefore could possibly, I suppose, to round things off, could possibly play either a Narbonne or a Carcassonne that we've already discussed, or Stade Niçois or Suresnes, who perhaps somewhat surprisingly overturned Albi in the game we'd flagged as part of the trips to Toulouse last weekend. Went to Albi, Suresnes, Parisian club. Have you seen their logo? It's got a saxophone on it, which is a really nice touch. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what the history is there, but maybe one to look into. But they travel to Nice at the same time that Carcassonne go to Narbonne, and one of those teams will be playing, you would think, either Montauban or Rouen in the next few weeks. So one to keep an eye on for there. Right. Anything else on Pro de Nationale before we take a short break and come back with some Petit-Fours?
No, I'm good to dive into the. Well, I guess it kind of ties. Let's link in from the Carcassonne game last week to the Petit-Fours. There's the astonishing thing that I saw on Instagram on the kind of when you go to these games in France, they do a kind of day schedule, don't they? And it's pre-match, match, après match, and they had Carcassonne had I think the game was 7 o'clock, wasn't it? So it was the après match was 9 p.m. until 1 a.m., which is a pretty hefty après match. Yeah, as it is. And there was then in town, as part of their match day agenda, the after, which started at 1 a.m. I can't remember. I think it finished at 5. Like, maybe that was a punchy prediction that they were gonna get that win. But that I've never seen that before. That is loose.
Yeah, that's pretty aggressive, isn't it? Fair play to Carcassonne. The other thing I saw, which is related to the same game and is become a little bit of a theme of the Petit-Fours over the last few weeks, was Narbonne opened up ticket sales when they knew they had a semi-final on the 11th of May, so early ticket sales, and post Carcassonne being getting through, the prices I think have doubled for each of the categories. So
I did think they were a bit punchy when I looked this afternoon. Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking anything wild, but I think the cheapest ticket has gone from 10 to 20, and maybe there's 15, a ticket that was 15 euros. Yeah. So again, love a little bit of skullduggery, try and prevent your local rivals coming down. As we say, we don't know yet, but we might have Rob in the ground there possibly. I think you could do much worse as a fallback to the Perpignan game than be there. I think it'd be quite an occasion.
My other thing for Petit-Fours and Digestifs for Carcassonne is I don't know. I assume they've done this every month, but we've only just started following them. They do a Player of the Month award, as I'm sure a lot of clubs do. And this month, for April, Sean Aidendorf, former Northampton Saints.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they are sponsored by Media Clinic, which is a photo shoot of him kind of celebrating or kind of going on the socials for the Player of the Month award. Basically looked like he was doing a day shift in Dixon's. Like, I think Media Clinic are like a kind of phone and digital camera shop. But I was like, well, hang on, what is this post? Oh wait, it's their Player of the Month. They genuinely look like something out of like a British sitcom for a phone shop. Yeah, phone shop.
Incredible. That's superb stuff. It's good to see. I'm sure I've seen some other examples of that over the years. I feel like actually, and I'm obviously a little bit little bit biased, but I think Exeter have had some quite good ones. They've got some very local sponsors down there. So like the tea room by the by the cathedral, and I don't know, like Darts Farm clotted cream and things like that. And yeah, it's always nice, always a nice touch. I think that's it on my Petit-Fours. You got any closes?
I've got quite a few more. Yeah.
All right, go on.
So just a heavier Petit-Fours. Biarritz are going to be bought, I think, and their new CEO is going to be a lawyer. So that suggests that it's kind of like actually a kind of someone commercially minded to try and take over. Not confirmed yet who the new director of rugby is going to be. Interesting one about that is Thibaut Dubois, a guy we mentioned last week as absolutely flying on loan at Van, a Po player. He signed a pre-contract agreement with Biarritz, and he's looking to get out of that because of the kind of instability there. And he's also looking to stay at Van, which makes sense given that they could be playing a top 14 next year, and he's been playing really, really well for them, some great rugby. So a bit of a heavier one, plenty to digest, plenty more to rumble on in that Biarritz saga, I think we can call it. It's certainly a saga. One that I know you will have enjoyed, and I think you reposted on our Twitter, was Nance du Quing and Maxime Lucu attending the Olympique Marseille game.
So good.
And going a little bit incognito, Nance du Quing in a white wig, cap and shades, and Maxime Lucu, the best looking bald man in the world, with a full blonde wig, like full blonde Sandy from Greece ringlets, just dancing away. Presumably, it must have been Stade Velodrome, wasn't it? I think they went to Marseille for it. Yeah. But they look like they were having a great time. The other one, which I think is the most amazing clip I've seen on Instagram for a long time. So, you know how in French rugby, they have a tradition with the shield of, so the Brennus, you actually kind of need to play around with it. And
Entermac a few years ago was surfing or bodyboarding it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they doing kind of sliding down the street on it. So Lorient won Regional 1 in their region. They had a video of two blokes on a boat, and they are quite high up on this boat. I don't like above the sea. And this bloke is kind of standing on the edge with his back to the water, and another bloke has then lobbed the shield into the sea. And the other bloke has done a backflip off the boat, full rotation, and landed feet first on the shield. It was like, I saw this on Rugby Amateur. Again, a stunning social media post from them. I'll repost. I think I reposted it on Instagram, but I'll repost it again. It was like, I think the caption was like applying to the Paris Olympics. It was a genuinely good dive, like to land perfectly on the shield, and also just the most ridiculous thing to a way of treating a trophy that you've just won.
That's outrageous.
Great to see that tradition. I think I saw another one from them of someone just doing some shots off, using it as a table for some shots of what looked like quite an aggressive liqueur. So good to see that tradition. And a lot of these games or a lot of the finals are being played over the last week or so. So plenty of that knocking around on French social media.
It's an epidemic of trophies getting battered across the country.
R.I.P. the trophy.
Fantastic. Right. I think we're done, aren't we?
Yeah. Great pod. Great to have Zak on. I think that was both of us really enjoyed that. Hopefully you guys did too. To have one of our authentic followers that supported us really, really from the start. I can't kind of quite stress that enough. And
actually genuinely know something about rugby because he played it professionally for 10 years.
Yeah. Unlike us two idiots.
Yeah. Big shout out to Zak. Really, really appreciate his time. Rob, have a fabulous time in France, wherever it is you get to, whether it be Narbonne, Perpignan, Toulouse, who knows? But I'm sure you'll keep us updated of your travels. Great.
Thank you.
As ever, I've been Richard. That has been Rob. We have been Rosbifs Rugby. You can follow us on all the usual stuff. You know where it is by now.
At Rosbifs Rugby.
At Rosbifs Rugby. Au revoir.
Au revoir.